call the meeting to order. Let's see. So we're going to call the meeting to order. And I'm going to read the statement. So this meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with the Albemarle County's Continuity of Government Ordinance. Note that this meeting is being recorded and also that this online meeting and any associated chats are public record. Even private comments directed only to specific members are likely to be subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. So there we go. So we're going to go ahead and get started. But what I want to do is just welcome Bruce, who has put in the application to join our committee, which is so exciting. And I'm really excited because in 2020, we have 3 new members, which is just wonderful. And I thought it would be great to just, if we could go around and just give a sort of a brief introduction about who we are and sort of why we joined the committee, and maybe something that really excites us. There are so many things that we're working on, but maybe one thing that we're excited about right now. And so I'll go ahead and start. So I'm Christine, and I am the acting chair right now. And I guess I joined the committee, it's hard to know, like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe? I don't even know. And it's been a real pleasure working with so many of you. And I guess right now I get excited about a lot of different things. I've been thinking about outdoor lighting just recently, and thinking, especially as the days are getting darker, and just when I go for a drive, it's just there's a lot of outdoor lighting and more of it. So, and I'm a master naturalist and a former middle school science teacher. So those are bits of my background. Lonnie, can I pass it on to you for an introduction?
Yeah, so I'm a long-term member of this committee, and I'm also director on the Thomas Jefferson Soil Water Conservation District. My big thing is plant conservation, but I also have pretty much a menagerie in my house right now, so I'm I like all kinds of living things. So, was there something else I was supposed to add?
Anything in particular you're excited about working on this year in 2020 with the National Heritage Committee?
Well, I mean, policy is, I've been very excited, the work that we've done with the policy committee. And I think there's several really good policy things that in that list of things. It's for me, it's less the individual item and more about seeing something congeal from an idea into something tangible that gets me excited.
Perfect, thank you. Nancy, I'm gonna call on you for.
All right, well, Bruce, welcome. We've seen each other many times at Ivy Creek. I've been a member of the committee maybe for 5 years. I care about the natural world. When I lived in Massachusetts, prior to moving here about 14 years ago, I was very involved in bird conservation. I was on the board of the international group called the American Bird Conservancy. So, and I'm on with the policy subcommittee. And all of that interests me, especially the light pollution because of how that relates to birds, and the parcelization problem, how we, just divide up the landscape. So it's not a viable way to use the earth. So as the way we're doing it now. So I'm very interested in that.
All right, thanks, Nancy. Peggy, how about, could you go next?
Hello, Peggy Cornett. I'm curator of plants at Monticello. I've worked there for 37 years. I spent time on the Ivy Creek board and a number of years on the board. And my background is in well, I have a master's from the Longwood program, but in the University of Delaware, but I also have a botany and natural history background, and have a very strong interest in preserving natural habitats and trying to encourage, less development of habitats such as that are conducive to ground nesting birds, and trying to encourage people who have large farms to stop mowing so often so that they can create more natural habitats for wildlife. That's been a big interest of mine, but also just native plants in general. I lead native wildflower walks and native plant walks at Monticello, and write about it, and have a big interest in Jefferson and natural history as well. So, but yeah, and also Christine and I have also been involved with composting and recycling and that sort of thing. We have a big interest in that. And lighting is a big deal in my mind as well. That's really concerning, especially now. I'm still on a rant about Albemarle High School and their lights. Is that it? That one that shines all over the John Warner Parkway at night, and nobody's in the fields and the lights are all on. So anyway, that's me.
Thanks, Peggy. Could we get, I'm just going to ask, there's a little bit of feedback. Now it might be you, Lonnie. If we could just mute other than the speaker, because I'm hearing something in that background. But thank you. Michael, do you mind introducing yourself?
No, I don't. I'm Mike Rodemeyer. I'm a recovering attorney. I'm actually one of the few people in the group who doesn't have a natural heritage background. So for me, there's a lot of this is a learning experience, learning about both what's here in Albemarle, and part of the reason I'm on the education committee is that I think it's the things that I've learned in the last 3 years I've been on the committee. It's remarkable to me how much there is in a place that has been colonized for over 400 years. You have to look for it, but there's still, it's an incredible landscape and lots of opportunities that I wish more people in the community knew about. So that's one of the things I'm interested in. I was involved a lot with conservation and environmental policy back when I was actually being paid to do something in Washington, and am trying now to get more involved. And the thing I'm excited about, I'm also on the electoral board, which explains why I'm delighted to be done with the election and excited about being back on the Natural Heritage Board.
Thank you, Michael. Emily, passing it on to you.
All right, thanks. Hi, Bruce. Glad you're joining us. Anyway, my background is actually mathematics and applied mathematics. So I have a PhD in operations research, and sort of that was sort of my field for a while, teaching, and but sort of got back to my roots of interest in nature through photography. So I do photography, and then I also now work for Center for Urban Habitats as a field tech. Bruce already knows, as probably most of you do, but strong interest in dragonflies and lots of other creatures and plants and just about everything. I've been doing a lot of hiking with my kids and being outside, and I'm getting pretty excited about invasives and the need to really do something about them. I'm excited about the potential that we're gonna be setting up some volunteer programs with the county and working on county lands and stuff. It's distressing to go out, I think this time of year, because so many of them are still green and visible. Even my kids are like, whoa, look at all the autumn olive here. Oh my goodness, you know. So it's striking to see. So anyway, so I'm kind of interested in that. I've always been a big fan of the county parks, and so I'm always excited about work that we can do with them and education work. And like the rest of you, been noticing the lights a lot more lately. And I've been on the committee for 3 years now, and I just, like Michael said, it's a great chance to learn a lot from the rest of you who are knowledgeable. And I really enjoy seeing how we can put our minds together on what are the important problems and trying to see if we can move those things forward. Excited about the wildlife corridor stuff. There's a talk going on actually right now that couldn't be part of by Wild Virginia, but I've asked for a recording to be sent to me. So if anybody else was excited about that and missed it, I'll send out a link when she gives it to me. So anyway, that's me.
Thanks, Emily. And Kate, passing it on to you.
Sorry, I was still muted. I'm Kate Malik. I want to say welcome to Bruce. I'm so glad to see you here. I've missed you. I have longstanding interest in human health and environmental health, and I have a cat helping me, pardon me. So I've been delighted to be mixing up here with people who are interested in a wide range of specifics that all fall really under that same umbrella. Biodiversity is, fascinating and wonderful and very important. The wildlife corridors have been exciting me quite a lot, but anything in the policy realm where we can look to gather information and share it with others for responsible governance that supports that community health and environmental health really makes me, totally delighted. I'm truly excited though by the flock of 36 turkeys that I've been watching for the past 3 weeks on the farm. It has been a daily delight to count them, to see where they've gone, to watch them roost. So I'm just going to leave that there. If I had a better picture, I would share it, but they're here and we're delighted.
Wonderful. Thank you for that great story. I can only imagine what that's like to see those turkeys. How thrilling. And Kim, will you give us a little, I think, of course, we all know you, but just a little something would be great.
Sure. Welcome, Bruce.
I want to say like our leader here.
Oh, no, I don't know. That's you. So I am the Natural Resources Manager for Albemarle County and the staff liaison to this committee. And so I'm relatively new to this role. I just started in March of 2020. And so I'm still sort of learning how local government works and, how what we all do here, fits into what I do in my day-to-day work. But yeah, I'm a forest ecologist by training, and I have worked as a botanist in rare plant conservation and vegetation ecology for a number of years, and then shifted more recently from science into land conservation. So for the past, 7 or 8 years working in conservation easements and sort of big picture conservation. So this is different for me, and I'm really interested to see, how we can affect, local policies and conservation at, at a more local level. So.
Thanks, Kim. And we have Carolyn, who's our support person, taking care of all the technology for this meeting. And also Margaret is an attendee who is a planner with the county. So welcome, Margaret, as well. And so Bruce, tell us a little bit about yourself and what drew you to join the committee and anything that you're excited about right now.
So I'm a long-term educator. I was surprised that Christine is now a former middle school teacher. That's news to me. First in Albemarle County, I was first on the Citizens for Albemarle. So I'm familiar with, I was reading the history of this committee. So when I saw the Citizens for Albemarle. That was right after I decided to go back to school to become a school teacher. But I knew and feel like I know all the people from back then. And then I worked at Ivy Creek for about 12 years. And as the COVID was getting started, I was getting ready to start something new in education. So that's been delayed, but I'm still very interested in bringing the outdoors to people and finding ways that they'll want to cherish it. And then because of that, they'll want to take care of it. So what are the ways, besides just telling them, what are the ways to turn that knowledge into cherishing? So that's where I come from.
Thank you, Bruce. And I think that is really an admirable and important thing to do, is how do we get people to understand and appreciate the natural world? And that's the first step to really protecting it, indeed. So thank you guys. It was really actually very nice to hear from everybody. It was kind of a nice way to start the meeting, actually. And really excited to have such a full committee slate. So we're up to 10 members now, which is really exciting. So we'll go ahead and work through our agenda, and hopefully everybody got a chance to look at the agenda. So if we could go ahead and review and improve today's agenda. Is there anybody, and Kim, do you mind putting that up for us? Actually, I guess we should stick that up there, but great, thank you. Is there anybody who can move to approve this?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Michael. And do we have a second on that?
Second.
I second.
Is that Peggy? Thank you for giving a second on that. Thank you very much. And then hopefully everybody got a chance to see those great minutes that Kim wrote up. And if we could go ahead and approve the minutes from the November meeting, that would be great. Do we have a motion to do that?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Michael. And do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into a couple follow-ups, important site updates, and Kim is going to talk a little bit about her visit to Arrowhead with David Hanna.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to update. It was a pretty quick visit, but Christine had asked me to share some photos, and so I will do that now. And I put them on a slide so I could share a map as well, in case anybody isn't familiar with this site and where it is. So this is a property. Let's see, can you guys see the PowerPoint? I'm trying to make it full screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
For some reason, oh, there it goes. Okay. And so it's hard to see the outline here, but this purple outline is the parcel that is owned now by the county, recently acquired, and it's includes part of this Dudley Mountain Bearing Complex, which is an important site in Albemarle County. So I wanted to go up there. Well, I've been catching up with David here and there anyway, but I wanted to, so I suggested this because I wanted to just lay eyes on the property and see what it was like. And I'm just trying to get familiar with the county parks and also the important sites. So we headed up there, and like I said, it was a quick visit. So we did not do any kind of botanical inventory or anything, but we did hike up to the ridge here. And with the leaves off, it's a really beautiful, spectacular view to the east. I know a lot of you have already been up there. It's not open to the public, and my understanding from talking to David and reading about it is this area is right now more of a natural areas model than an actual park. Although Parks and Rec is going up there and clearing the trails and doing some minimal maintenance on the trails up there. But it's locked and gated, so it's really not open to the public. But there are these really cool mafic barrens up there that I know some of you have seen, these rock outcrops with some interesting plants, communities growing on them. And yeah, I would really like to get back and in the growing season and spend a little bit more time up there. Let's see. So yeah, that's all I really had. I don't have a lot of photos. We did unfortunately see a lot of invasive species. There's a lot of stiltgrass and wineberry, tons in the woods down below. And also wavy leaf basket grass, which I know was already known from there, from one location, but I saw it all along the forest road going up there. So I put, this is not from Arrowhead, by the way. These photos are from the Maryland DNR, but I thought I'd just share them just in case anybody isn't familiar with this particularly horrible invasive species. And they were, I didn't take a lot of photos. They were all in seed though, like in that bottom left-hand photo that you see. So unfortunately, they're all going to seed and they're pretty well established, at least along the road. I'm not sure how much into the woods, but so Christine and I were talking about this earlier. It might be another opportunity to talk with, or to bring this up with, our discussions with county parks and invasives management and along those topics. So that is all I have on that site.
Is the grass green still, or
No, it isn't. And I don't think I would have even noticed it if I hadn't heard before going up there that it was known from there. So I sort of had my eye out for it. So no, it wasn't green. I collected a little bit just to confirm that the ID but the seeds are really obvious.
really bummer?
Yeah, I know.
How was did you walk up the road in the center? Is that how you took to get
Yes.
up to the ridge? How was the scarring on that from the logging that was done, last year, I think, year before? It was a real mess, the one I was there.
On the road was a mess.
It was just really, some very big equipment had been taken through the property and across to a different parcel. And there was some serious damage. So I hope that's been mitigated in some way.
I might not have been the road we were on. I didn't notice anything like that. It just seemed like an old forest road, not very well used or maintained. But there's a few roads that go up to the ridge, so I might not have been on the one you're talking about.
All right, thanks, Kim. I think just interesting to see it on the map and to see the pictures. I've never been there, so that's piqued my curiosity. Is there? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, they used to have, I don't know if they still do, but they used to have days where they would have volunteers that would come out and help supervise the park or like help, check on things. So if you want to go out there, I mean, it's a good opportunity to go out there, is just talk to parks and ask to volunteer. That's when the next volunteer day is.
That may have been through the MOU with Ivy Creek, which I don't believe exists anymore. Just so you know.
They changed
that agreement was not renewed unless something has changed since I left Ivy Creek. So that is just cautionary is all.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
I think that's right. That's my understanding too.
I've been to the property a couple of times, and I also live right next door. So Dudley Mountain is, if y'all watch my arm that way, so you just go to my house and walk up the hill and walk along the top of Dudley Mountain, you'll walk right into the property. So I'm familiar with a lot of these invasives because they're here too. So as we move further along, I'm happy to help because it's so close. Just 2 cents.
Yeah. do you see the wavy leaf basket grass on your property?
I was surprised at the wavy leaf basket grass, and I'm a little worried now. So tomorrow when the sun rises, I'm going to go look and hope I don't find.
Well, I hope you don't find it either, but let us know
Yeah,
if you do.
yeah.
You know, I've never had the chance to try it on wavy leaf basket grass, but I can say on Japanese stiltgrass, fire works really well. We actually have a propane weed torch, and so we've taken it through the areas that we have on our property with Japanese stiltgrass in the fall, you know, with water nearby, and it doesn't come back. So not in the areas that we hit with fire. I mean, it can reseed in from elsewhere, but the areas that we hit, they don't come back. So it's a good management tool.
That's good to know. Has anybody else visited any of the important sites, or that would like to report on a visit? No. All right. Well, I'm going to move on to the Charlotte Humphreys Education Initiative update. And I had met, I guess I have met since we talked recently, and really looking at getting those education materials in the park. And one of them includes using the plants map, and we're still answering some questions about the best way to attach the labels to the trees. And Nancy helped me out with some suggestions on that. And also looking at a cool playscape using stumps positioned at different levels, and potentially the kids in the park trail brochures. So those are some of the things that look like that we're going to move forward with that for the Charlotte Humphreys Park. So just giving you an update on that. And then we could move on to our sort of subcommittee reports, and we could start with the education subcommittee. We had talked in our last meeting about Charlotte Humphreys and the work that was going on there, and then also this idea of reaching out to landowners that are in those conservation focus areas, and with a letter of introduction. And I know that Kim perhaps already has a presentation that she has started, but to develop a presentation that we could advertise through the county website and invite those landowners to come join this webinar, where they could learn about things that they can do to protect their land and to be good stewards, and some of the programs that might be available, and to introduce them to the BAP and those conservation areas. So that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at this winter, so that we could potentially have this program ready to go in the spring sometime. Does anybody else from the Education Committee want to report anything else out? All right, Emily. No, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the Policy Committee and let you guys report out to us what you guys have been doing.
Okay, I can take this, but other people can feel free to jump in as needed. So we met on December 16th. We did a recap of Sugar Hollow and what we learned about that. We talked about putting together a list of a mission. Sorry, we put together a mission statement. Actually, I guess I have to figure out how to share that. But I did put that together. We'll be able to share that. I'll share that by email later. And then we talked about the light pollution ordinance a bit. There was also talked about, there's a TMDL meeting that night that's quite interesting. It's a Ravenna TMDL. So it's going to cover a good portion of Albemarle County, and it's going to be a very different TMDL in the sense that it's a benthic TMDL. So it's really going to cover, you know, the little critters that live in streams, right? So actions, some of the TMDLs that we get, like bacterial, there's a lot of things we can't do, a lot of practices that aren't approved. Basically, we can do septic pump outs, or you can do standard agricultural practices, but this we may be able to use like some of the things like replacing turf grass with native plants, some more innovative things, you know, that we might be able to apply to a fairly significant section of the county. Once this TMDL is complete, there might be funding for doing more of that. So, I hope on the drive, you guys have seen there's a list of policy suggestions. There's a little grid. Oh, there. Kim put together the policy subcommittee charter.
Yeah, I just pulled that up. I figured this was a good time to talk about that.
Yeah, so that's my draft statement I put together in a few minutes. I don't know if there's any suggestions or improvements to it. Oh, I see Kim made an edit. No, Kate made an edit. Sorry there. But so if we're good with that, then we could probably approve that. Any changes? Anyone want to move to approve this as the policy committee charter?
I'll move.
And I'd
It
be
looks good.
happy to second that.
Okay, I guess it'd be your call for if there's a vote.
Oh, should we go ahead
So,
and vote on this? Oh, so I'm going to go down the list.
Yeah.
So Lonnie, do you approve?
Aye.
Kate?
Yes.
Kate, oh, thank you. Emily?
Yes.
Great. Peggy? Yes, of course you do, because Nancy?
Yes, and I wonder if maybe we can just do it for future or the show of hands, because as the committee gets bigger, this kind of thing just takes a lot of time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the FOIA rules kind of demanded to be done this. I mean, the online meeting requires to be done this way unless someone says different.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Nancy. And Michael?
Yes.
And then Christine, I approve it as well. So looks like we've got everybody. And Bruce, you haven't heard back yet, have you, in terms of approval from the board?
I got an email last night that said
Oh.
I'd get an official letter in the mail the old-fashioned way. So they
nice.
said, I guess there was a Board of Supervisors meeting last night. Maybe that's how it happened, but I got, as of 6:18 p.m., I was accepted.
All right,
So
well,
I
go.
approve. I approve.
Yay.
Very quick. That's great.
I know, that's astoundingly quick. That's fantastic. That's great. And so this policy, once you come up with some policy points, then we're going to be able to, we want to share this with the Board of Supervisor members, right? And other staff in the county.
So procedure wise, we'll work out the details of new policies, and then we'll bring it to this committee for further discussion and approval. So that's the idea. There's also one of the things we shared. We should probably send this. I don't know if all of you got this, but there is a stream health report as part of that TMDL for the county. And it's very interesting to see. They showed all the streams in the area that were impaired. A lot of different ones in Crozet. It was very fine detailed. It's very informative. If you guys have never seen that map, we should probably send that back out again. And actually the way that DCR did the TMDL meeting was really interesting. They had like interactive polling. It was actually a fun meet. The first time I've ever attended a meeting like that, that was actually fun. So the other thing we talked about a bunch of different issues, potential future policy issues. We talked a bit about parcelization and different ideas about how we could address that. We talked about, for example, how currently roads in the rural area, when you have a developer builds a private road, it's usually on the consent agenda. The board of supervisors just will adopt that road, and then taxpayers will pay for it, maintain it forever. And we talked about like maybe one policy idea could be like maybe not putting it on the consent agenda, maybe actually discussing whether we really do want to automatically adopt the new roads that private developers build in the rural area. So we talked about certainly, gravel road, and we've had these discussions in the past, this committee, about gravel roads and policies of helping protect gravel roads from fragmentation, because they're basically de facto upzoning when you pave a gravel road. We talked about, I've also started work on another policy document that we'll be continuing to discuss, which would be limiting parcel size in the rural area. Currently, you can make as many 21-acre subdivisions as you want. The problem with that is that these, when this was first envisioned, as one person said to me, they said, well, no one will have a 21-acre lawn. And then what have we seen in the rural area? We have in fact seen 21-acre lawns, big mansions with 21-acre lawns. It's horrible. So I think we need to reconsider the 21-acre subdivision for the rural area, and maybe consider 5 acres as the maximum size that you can split a piece off of any given property, which do wonders to help conserve, stop fragmentation, and without taking away any ability for people to subdivide their property. But yeah, that's something we're going to discuss more. I did put a document out there in the policy folder for people to review. I believe Kim brought up transfer of development rights. That's another thing that's going to be on our agenda in the near future. I put up a document about, I reshared some of the documents that we had on transfer of development rights, and also wrote up a new policy suggestion for how we might do transfer of development rights, so for further discussion. Let's see, what else do we have in here that we discuss?
You talked about the lighting ordinance, right? That was part of.
We did. I think what we decided that we really want to get, we've heard from people in the public who are concerned about the lighting ordinance, but really to move forward, what we really need to hear from is staff and the people that currently enforce the existing ordinance, and have someone walk us through the language of the ordinance and how they enforce it currently, so that we know what kind of corrections need to be made. So our proposal, and really the proposal for this committee, is that one of our meetings, we invite someone from staff to talk about that and walk us through the policy so we can see what areas might be adjusted. Beyond that, I think it'd be really good for us to identify a specific problematic site where we feel like it could be improved. Someone mentioned Albemarle High School, but there could be other problematic sites where we think like this should be considered a violation. Maybe do a little field trip, a social distance field trip. We all stand at a distance and look at the egregious lighting. And then talk about what kind of policy we could implement that would have addressed that specific site. Like, how do we put into words what we're seeing and how to fix it?
Yeah,
so that's where where we were on that. I mean, I think the problem is we've circled around and around with the lighting issue a lot, and we really need concrete language that we can recommend to the board of supervisors to fix the policy.
Yeah, I just want to add, I was reading over chapter 4 of the comprehensive plan where they do, I think objective 11 has to do with protecting the night sky and addressing lighting. And so there's, you know, pretty, I didn't realize that all that language was there in terms of, you know, aspirational language about addressing that and protecting the dark skies.
It is, and I think the gap is that lighting has changed a lot since that was written, particularly the advent of LED lighting. And so the lighting that's done now, like an LED, I mean, I like LEDs, you know, if I don't have my video on, you can probably see it, you could see my aquarium behind me. And I use LED lighting for my aquariums because it's more like sunlight. So my corals appreciate it, and the various plants and whatnot appreciate it. But that's also really bad if you're going to do it as like a street light, because it's more like sunlight. So plants and animals think that it's daytime.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a lot of great articles. I shared some out. I hope people managed to read them. There's been some high profile articles in the journal Nature, and also in some other high profile scientific journals, really talking about the broad implications of lighting, and even some pretty unprecedented calls from scientists that we should be treating lighting as we do other forms of pollution. You know, just like if someone were to dump motor oil in a drain, we should think of lighting in that similar way. There's even some weird things I've heard recently, like that it's making people grow taller. Like it's the artificial lighting that we're exposed to is also messing with human metabolism. So there's some weird stuff going on there.
And I think that Kim, you had talked to me today about perhaps inviting Margaret and
Yes.
and at maybe our next or at some point.
I just noticed she was here and she had to go, but yeah, Margaret has offered maybe in January to come and talk to us about you know, how they review lighting when they do site plan reviews. And so that might be a good place to start. And she's also familiar with, you know, any of the lighting related policy. So we can start there and maybe break it down, and possibly have someone from zoning come as well and talk about, you know, what they do with respect to lighting. So yeah, getting familiar with it from getting the staff perspective, then maybe we can see, you know, or help us to understand what the ordinances say now and where there might be gaps that could be addressed.
Yeah.
So
And
we'll
then-
work on that for an agenda in the next month or two.
Right. Do we have a second? Can you pull up that list of policy ideas it's in the policy folder on the NHC drive, so people can see that document.
And Lonnie, do you guys have a standing meeting time, and will you be meeting this month?
I believe we do now.
And
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
is
Yes.
this the third Wednesday?
Yes, it is. It's the third Wednesday and it'll be the 16th
The 16th, 5
at
p.m.
5 o'clock. I will be coming to you all from beautiful Idaho that day,
Oh, nice.
going to visit my family. But yes, that's the day. So
All right, great. And the education meeting, it'll be on that third Monday. So that'll be the 21st. And
that's correct.
yeah. And so hopefully everybody can still make that.
I'll share snow if they have snow.
Wonderful. You'll be enjoying Idaho.
I will
Hopefully it'll
be.
snow there.
I do too.
So one of the things I hope to do is, you see the spreadsheet in front of you. You can see I've put together some columns there. We're missing a lot of information. These are all the different, sort of conservation policy ideas that we've discussed in the past, or their current things that could be done, current things that are being done. For example, land use valuation is currently being done. And trying to get at sort of a more objective way of evaluating each one of these potential policies. And I'm hoping, as we get the opportunity in our committee to, and in the larger committee too, to value each one of these, we can go through and fill out each one of these rows to make sure that each one of these is complete. So I hope that you can all sort of look through there. If you have questions on what those things are, if you want me to provide additional details, I can do that. If you have other things you'd like to add to this, please do, so that we can discuss them. Some important columns, note enabling legislation. Does the General Assembly actually allow us to do this? Is it already in the comprehensive plan? I don't know if the column D, I don't know if I phrased this right, Kim, but the Board of Supervisors have like a plan of work of things they're actually going to do in the near future. That's what I meant by that. There's also the committee's plan of work, which is a little bit different. And then in the Biodiversity Action Plan, and then see if we can cite the sections where it's referenced, if it's something we've already identified. If it's something Albemarle County has already adopted, if there's already money for it, or if money is not necessary, whether it's an existing program or not. And then I have some links to any other documents of the final column of, if we put together documents already on it, or talked about it or evaluate it, then I have links there. Yeah, if you scroll down, for example, I have one for establish maximum subdivision size. You can click that little link under analysis, and that should take you to the Google Doc that I just put together, or you can click the one on transfer of development rights. You can see where that goes under the analysis link on column K.
That's a nice way to organize it.
Yeah, as I said, I was trying to get to, when I first created the spreadsheet quite a while ago, I was trying to get to an objective way to evaluate policies, because these are the kind of questions I think the Board of Supervisors are going to ask. Does it cost money? Are we allowed, does the General Assembly even allow us to do it? Are other localities already doing it? So for example, with TMDL, you see a list of other counties that are using TMDL already, which is helpful. So.
Are you guys, have you already, did I miss this, that you prioritized some of the, and set some goals just for the near future? Because that's a big list.
It is a big list. Yeah, our goal is to take on a few of these each. Well, I mean, it may be just really digging into one, and then, as other things come up, but, really trying to dig into at least one of these each meeting, and get some more information on it. I mean, a lot of the timing of these things will also be dependent, I think, on, we'll take some guidance from Kim as to where the Board of Supervisors are right now and what they're looking for input on. So if there's, for example, when Kim is working on the rural stream protection policies, we might want to focus on that too, to make sure that we're helping get our input there about stream protection. So that's how some of the sort of timing goes. I certainly, welcome input on people. In fact, we could create a new column here if people want to, or we could put out a little poll. That might be a fun thing to do. You could put a little poll to see which of these people find are most important to them. Which items the committee would like to see us address first. I heard some person, I think it was it Nancy, the mission parcelization?
Well, yes, I did. But I also think another column would be useful. For instance, in the light pollution, to remind us, at least this is memory, that VDOT is about to redo all of the lighting. They have contracted with Train, which is interesting since it's a company known for doing air conditioners, and that they're going to do it all with LEDs. And I don't know if we have any input that we could say if we think that something else might be better once we learn more about artificial lighting. But just another column so that we could, place as we find some other information that's relevant, we could just put it there.
Yeah, I think what we might want to do with some of these more complex policies is, I just provide a link to one document, but maybe what we probably need to do is create folders for some of these individual policies, because certainly if there's some of those more complex ones like lighting are deserving of their own individual folder and a link to that folder, because there's so many documents that have sort of been, so much information that's relevant and might want to share.
There is that conservation. That was the kind of a question I had earlier about the folders in the Google Drive. And there is that conservation policy folder where I think we've already put some items, but I would love to see a separate folder for this subcommittee. So I can make that and put the draft minutes up there. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So that would help, and we could put, we could organize it however we would like, but I'd love to see that too.
I mean,
Yeah, and Lonnie, are these links that go to the documents related to each of these topics, are they in the conservation policy folder too, or are they saved somewhere else?
Yeah, those are in the conservation policy folder. So, I mean, we could take the conservation policy folder and just the committee could adopt that and put our minutes. I thought we had another folder though where minutes go. Shouldn't all minutes sort of go in the same folder? I don't know. We had someone who. Say again?
We've been putting the education subcommittee minutes just in the education subcommittee folder.
Okay, so we'll put our
So it's just all
policy
in one
minutes.
place.
Yeah, we'll put our policy minutes in the policy folder. So we'll just create a little folder in there called minutes, and we'll put those in there. And then maybe we'll create a new folder for each one of these items, at least as we discuss them.
Is that current folder there intent? Like, did you create that for this purpose? So that is the policy folder, or do we need a new one?
That folder has been there for quite some time, and I think that was the purpose of it for putting policy ideas and policy discussions. And so, I mean, I think it's an appropriate use of it. I mean, this spreadsheet was already there in the policy folder.
Okay.
I'd created quite some time ago. It just never got used.
All right.
I cleaned it up a little bit now. Some stuff.
It sounds great. And yeah, there's a lot to be done there for sure. But I'm glad you guys are diving into it. And are you open to, like, I would just like to listen in if I can. So I don't know if maybe the link could be shared with everybody if there's a topic that the rest of us are particularly interested in that you're going to be discussing and you don't mind us tuning in. Be nice to send that link out. And I could do that the same thing with the education committee meeting too.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
If people don't have enough meetings to go to.
I'll always remember though, my wife, she lives, we used to live in Innisfree, but she works still there, and it's an intentional community, so they do a lot of things by consensus, and they have a lot of meetings about everything. And one day I walked in and there's this volunteer just fuming, and he goes, "I can't believe it, they're having a meeting about why they have too many meetings. I refuse to go." I'll always remember that.
That's about right, for sure. All right, well, I'm excited. We got our subcommittees going and making progress. So Bruce, if you want to consider, well, it sounds like you're interested in the education subcommittee, so we will look forward to having you join us. And then the last thing that's on our follow-ups is a little update on the wildlife corridor on Route 29 South. And Leah is not here. She's actually attending that webinar. But Kim's going to give us a little update. And she's got a map, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I actually have a presentation. So you all don't have to look at me while we talk about it. You can look at maps and photos, which is cool. So if you all are patient, some of this will be review because we've been talking about it for a couple of months, but I am putting together this presentation for the Virginia Safe Wildlife Corridors Collaborative. So for those of you who weren't here last month when we started talking about this, and actually we started the month before with Grant and his presentation, the Virginia Safe Wildlife Corridors Collaborative is this group of members of state and federal agencies and nonprofits that are all coming together to look at ways to improve connectivity and wildlife passage and reduce collisions. And Leah's been participating in the meetings. And when we got interested in potentially doing a demonstration project, and there's been a lot of attention in previous years on this area, the Southern Albemarle Mountains. So they've invited me to come and talk about this area and what we're doing and what we're exploring. I guess we're not really doing anything yet other than just looking into different options and opportunities down there. So I started putting together this presentation, and I'll share some of it with you so that we can talk about it a little bit more. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, here we go. And so, you all have been involved in the BAP and in these discussions before. So some of this, of course, is going to be more review of what we've already been talking about. But basically, as you are all familiar with the Biodiversity Action Plan, there's a lot of reasons to focus on the Southern Albemarle Mountains. There's these large forest blocks, and a lot of them are high ranking with respect to their composite scores. So basically have a high ecological integrity. There's all the important sites, and that whole area is a conservation focus area. So, and then over the years and within the BAP, there have been these opportunities for connectivity across 29 that have been identified. So, other reasons to focus on the mountains in the Southern Albemarle Mountains is that we know that Route 29 passes through the middle of them and presents this major barrier for wildlife. So we have all this anecdotal data on bear and bobcat and of course deer, I'm sure many other wildlife down there. And then also, we've been looking at the police report data, which is what this map is showing here. And so this map goes from Charlottesville in the northern corner here, and this is Route 29. I don't know if you can see my cursor going down to the county boundary here. So that's the area that we've been kind of talking about and considering and working with Bridget to come up with ideas for a potential demonstration project. And so this map is showing the collisions from 2011 to 2017. And there's a researcher from Smithsonian who put together this web mapper. And he's updating it with the more recent data too. But as Bridget mentioned, these numbers are very, very low compared to the actual collisions. And she's, there's research showing that police report data, because hardly anything is actually reported. And it's usually only deer that you could, multiply it by 7 or 8. So these numbers are really actually pretty high, and you can see where there are hot spots as well in some of the areas that we're looking at. So this is just getting into more detail about the forest blocks, and for Bruce and others who might not be as familiar with the BAP, the darker colored here are the higher quality, higher integrity forest blocks, and the lighter colors are smaller, but still large forest blocks. And then the important sites, of course, the Southern Albemarle Mountains is one itself, and then there's a bunch of other ones in there. in the area that we're interested in again, which is this corridor of 29. This is the conservation focus areas. So this one is in the southern Albemarle Mountains conservation focus area, one of 3 that were identified in the BAP based on a number of different criteria. And so this is just a little bit closer look at that area, the darker green being the higher scoring large forest blocks. So we've talked about where there are some of these forest blocks that meet and opportunities for terrestrial connectivity. And then of course, you know, the river and stream corridors and where they cross 29. And then the BAP, they also did, with the green infrastructure, did this connectivity analysis, not just looking at where forest touches, but also, you know, the least cost, I think, analysis. And there's a lot of detail in the appendices, I think, of the BAP of how this was done. But basically, these green arrows are the best areas for terrestrial connectivity, and the blue lines are noted for riparian connectivity. And this is the North Fork and the South Fork of the Hardware River, those 2 areas. And this is going along Red Hill Road, the terrestrial connectivity up to Dudley Mountain, where we were just looking at. So these are the goals of the BAP, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, that support doing a project. And I won't read them, but of course they talk about the conservation focus areas and reducing fragmentation. And then there's a recommendation specifically about the Route 29 and improving connectivity in the southern Albemarle Mountains. So while we'd love to do something like this, it's going to cost millions of dollars. And so we can't, unfortunately, though, that would be amazing, but there are still a lot of opportunities and things that we can do. So when we started having this conversation with Bridget, I put together this map looking at essentially all the different sites where waterways cross 29. So because we're unlikely to have funding to build a structure, right? We could use existing structures that are there, much like Bridget did in her 64 project with the fencing and connecting 2 areas. So even without building a new structure, there's opportunities for improving passage with some of these structures and directing wildlife to them. Also potentially replacing some of the structures. So one of the first things I did was look at VDOT's 6-year improvement program and see which, if any of these were scheduled to be replaced in the near future. And so that was our starting point. And not all of these are culverts. Some of them are just small tributaries and just have like a little pipe. So they're not all good project sites, but it seemed logical to start with all of them. And this area, just to orient you if I haven't already, is just about 3 miles north of Red Hill Road, up at the top of the map here, and then going down to the county boundary along 29. There's one other site here, number 2, which is where the North Fork of the Hardware River crosses Red Hill Road. And we'll talk about that one in a few minutes and why I included that as well. So yeah. So I don't remember if in the big group we talked about all the different issues, but we certainly in our smaller group have, and there's a lot of them with 29 that, you know, Bridget did not necessarily face on 64. So there's a lot of driveways. You can see the major roads here. This is Red Hill Road, by the way, north, south, and 29. So there's the major roads, and then if you can see where my cursor is, there's a lot of little driveways. So doing some kind of big fencing project along most of 29 is probably not very practical. There's likely to be also scenic concerns, and there's so much private land along here. So those are things we need to consider as well. And then when we started looking at some of these structures, you know, some of them are just unsuitable for wildlife passage. This is one that Christine took a photo of in the top right corner. That's just tiny. It's just a tiny little tributary. Maybe some things use it, but it's very small. And then there's also places where there are pipes and fences in the river. And so those are obviously barriers to passage for potentially for fish and, you know, other wildlife as well. And then just fences along, you know, private property, which are, of course, are going to be barriers for wildlife movement. So these are not necessarily issues that can't be overcome, but they just mean that there's a need to work with private landowners and adjacent landowners on some of these issues once we determine where potential project sites might be. So there's issues, but there's also some cool opportunities that we've talked through, and Bridget was kind enough to join us a week or two ago and look at some of these. So this is at the North Fork, where there's already a pretty large structure for wildlife passage, and there is some terrestrial habitat on the side of it where you can imagine something could pass underneath. And there could be opportunities here to just clear some of this debris and sort of expand the area for wildlife passage without having any impact at all to the structure or to the stability of the structure. So that is something, you know, we may be able to work with VDOT to help to help us do that and open this up. So that's one potential opportunity. Another one is this bridge at Red Hill Road that I mentioned that is very close. It's just east of this terrestrial connectivity opportunity that was identified in the BAP. So this is where, if you guys are familiar, I'm sure you are, that the North Fork of the Hardware River follows along Red Hill Road, pretty much all the way from Old Lynchburg Road to 29. And this terrestrial connectivity opportunity really connects the Southern Mountains to Dudley Mountain, where, you know, this is Arrowhead right here, we were just looking at earlier.
So Kim, you also, it's also important to note that on the other side, you see that other point is the Red Hill Wetlands, and that's also a significant site as well.
Yeah, this right here. Yeah, and this is like I said, this is a really, really tricky area around this intersection because of all the driveways, but that is I have noted that, and so that's important too. Thank you, Lonnie. But this area, right, so this area where the North Fork actually crosses Red Hill Road, that's this bridge that we're looking at here. And it's not exactly where this connectivity opportunity is. It's a bit to the east, but it's very, very close. And the reason I looked at this one is because this is on the 6-year improvement program website, VDOT's website. So it's scheduled for replacement. And clearly this bridge does not have opportunity for terrestrial passage underneath it. But in talking with Bridget, you know, the opportunities to replace an existing structure when it's already scheduled to be replaced and replace it with something that is perhaps a bit wider and includes more land on either side, you know, is something that would be very easy and cost effective to do, and also encouraging VDOT and potentially neighboring landowners to do more planting and increase the buffer to maybe even connect with these large forest blocks that we're looking at. So I think that is actually a really cool opportunity since it's scheduled to be replaced. And then the last one I'm going to just briefly talk about, because we haven't done a lot of investigation down here yet, but the South Fork of the Hardware, there's actually really a lot of forest on both sides, even more than these forest blocks show. And there's some opportunities that Bridget sees for fencing. They're much, much shorter than, not anywhere near the scale of what she did on 64. But there's long stretches here where there are no driveways, and fencing could potentially be put in the VDOT right away, and maybe working with adjacent landowners to tie it in to help direct wildlife to cross at the South Fork, where there is a large culvert or bridge. I haven't seen this one yet. I think it's a culvert, but very big, sort of like the North Fork one we looked at. So there's opportunities here, and you know, we're still looking at these sites. I have been in touch with the VDOT engineer who works locally, the resident engineer, and we're going to go out next week to look at some of these other spots further south near Covesville. And they're helping me figure out, what the width of the right of way is and what uses are permitted and where we need to work with them to get permits. For example, if we select some sites and want to put camera traps out to see what types of wildlife are using these structures, both before and after we potentially do something. So there's permitting involved with that. And then next steps, of course, we're getting recommendations and expertise from Bridget, but also hopefully from others within the State Wildlife Corridors Collaborative. And that's why I put together this presentation. So, which I'm scheduled to give to them later this month. So hopefully I'll have some more information about some of these other sites before that. So
This is great.
that was a whirlwind recap of what we've been working on.
Very encouraging. Yeah.
Excellent work. I mean, really, really excellent work. And both those sites look like great. There's two ones, the one on Red Hill Road, and then also the potential for one on 29 by Covesville. That's really the South Fork of the Hardware. Those are really great opportunities. I know there's been some bobcat collisions in that area on the south, near the South Fork of the Hardware River.
Right. Yeah, and so I think just to summarize or recap, the idea that we have or that's forming right now is to maybe create a bigger project about the whole area, the Southern Albemarle Mountains area, and then identify, some smaller projects for improving connectivity throughout the area. And there are opportunities for funding as well. And I think being involved with the State Wildlife Corridors Collaborative will help sort of, boost our project if we do get to the point of applying for any of these funding sources.
What was that figure you mentioned for the beautiful overpass?
The figure?
Yeah.
How much it would
How
cost?
much did that cost?
I can't remember. So Bridget said something about this, or it might have been Grant. It was either millions or billions of dollars to create something like
Yeah,
that.
I know it's a lot. I love those.
I
There's
know.
that one that's been all over the internet recently. Is it Idaho? I can't remember where it is, but it is a new one that has just been opened. And there are so many wonderful creatures walking across that day and night. So anyway.
Yeah. The one
Grant
that I
funding.
showed is from Singapore, but I know there are others in Canada and other places.
Maybe it was Wyoming. If I can find it, I'll email it out to the group, but it was just really encouraging and wonderful to see. Thank you for that presentation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Kim, that's fantastic. I love how you put it all together. The maps are great, just taking all that information, and it really helps you to understand what that road looks like in terms of accidents and possible crossings. So exciting. Get those camera traps out there, and that'll be great. And also just, I love the idea of taking the entire road potentially, because there are, that could you even have those flashing signs at strategic places and move them around just to slow traffic down certain times of year. If we could identify those spots, that would be good as well.
Kim, I know it's outside your scope, but I think also there is the gravel road issue. Since you're talking with VDOT anyway, there's less collisions with wildlife on these gravel roads just because people are going slower. And there's also some major gravel roads that go through the Southern Albemarle Mountains, particularly Dick Woods Road, Batesville Road. There's a bunch of gravel roads. Each one of those is worth preserving in order to maintain the connectivity, because once those are paved, they'll become places where wildlife get hit. The current structure, the way that VDOT funds the rural area roads is really counterproductive, because it's sort of a use it or lose it system, which encourages the county to pave roads that really shouldn't be paved, in contradiction to our comprehensive plan. So I don't know where we can sort of have opportunities to make that point to VDOT, like maybe you're encouraging us to do the wrong thing. Wouldn't these dollars be better spent in some other way? But
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Kim. And that is the end of our business on our agenda. So does anybody have anything that they would like to further discuss before we sign off this evening? Yeah, Nancy.
You gave us the tree commission report, which I found very interesting.
Mhm.
And I wondered, does county do anything like that? Certainly in the development areas since all of Charlottesville is, do we have anything like that?
I wondered the same thing, actually. And I don't know, Kim, do you have any, or Lonnie, any
yeah,
ideas
we
about?
don't.
We don't.
We don't. I know there's some interest on the part of the Board of Supervisors to do something more in that regard, to actually have a tree protection policy. But I don't know where that's at. I think if that was something we would pursue as a recommendation, there'd probably be some support from the Board of Supervisors. But currently, I don't think there's anything.
Mhm.
And it's
Well,
interesting because
We
I
could,
feel like, yeah.
well, maybe we could add it to your spreadsheet, tree canopy in the development area, just as we
Yeah.
remember to sort of look at that.
Yeah, and I think it's even referenced in the biodiversity action plan as something that we should pursue. So, yeah, I think it makes sense to add it to that spreadsheet.
Yeah, and it's also part of the natural resources work plan that was approved by the Board of Supervisors when David started to have, and I don't remember the exact phrasing of it right now, but it's basically about creating an urban forestry program for the county. And so at some point, it's something I'd be interested in working on with all of you or whoever's interested in it.
Kim, if you come across that, do you mind just sharing it with us? Some of that language in there.
The
I don't-
language, yeah, it's on the, I will share it, but it's also on the Natural Resources Program work list on the website if you go to the natural.
Okay.
Yeah.
And speaking of the website, I saw there's a beautiful picture now on the Natural Heritage webpage. So that's
Yeah.
whoever was responsible for getting that in there. That's lovely, having that photograph.
Gave them a little nudge.
Yeah,
Make it prettier.
that's fantastic. But Nancy, I agree. I think that's an important thing to push on, because as especially in the growth areas, every single tree comes down. And how aggressive are the tree planting efforts? I don't know. And I think that it is something to pay attention to. And it also intersects with the climate action plan as well. Keeping those trees and making sure when those areas are developed that the developers are putting the trees back in and planting those trees, and they're going to have some cover. So I think it's definitely worth pursuing and looking at.
Yeah, there's a new development going in down below Martha Jefferson that you can see from Monticello. It's a huge swath they've just scalped, and it's just so discouraging. It's right above the Ravenna River.
Yeah.
Too late now, I guess.
Yeah. I guess,
Very lost, I guess.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was asked by a member of the Board of Supervisors just this past week, if there was a list that was approved trees, approved native trees that developers should use for mitigation. There's a friend of mine contacted me about an area in Crozet where the developer had destroyed the buffer and had to pay a fine for it. And so the county said, well, you know, they agreed to plant X number of trees. And so the question I asked is, well, A, did they plant the trees? And B, are the trees that they planted, are they just crepe myrtles, or, you know, or what were they, you know? And so I think these are things that we know might be worth digging into to make sure that, you know, whether it be for mitigation or conservation, that there's a plan for what kind of trees people plant. I love how the Tree Commission has had these guidelines, not just about what trees to plant, but also like making sure the trees won't die when people plant them, like guidelines on how to successfully plant a tree without, you know, I hate seeing these trees in like the middle of like Fashion Square Mall or someplace, you know, they're just always, or Albemarle Square is good, they're just always on the verge of death, you know, like they're just little twigs in a sea of asphalt. So.
Well, they plant them too deep and they mulch them too high. It's unbelievable. I mean,
It is.
it's down the street here in Belmont next to ACAC where they just planted some trees right along. I guess it's Monticello Avenue before you get to where the fire station is, and it's just terrible. No one knows how to plant trees. Oh,
Yeah.
It's weird. I mean, I've often thought that the city needs a natural heritage committee and the county needs a tree commission.
Well, there you go. All right, you guys, I guess we are not going to meet again until 2021. So how do you like that? That's
let's get out of this year. It's the worst year ever.
I heard somebody say the other day that this has been a kidney stone of a year. And we're glad it's gonna pass.
The final thing that happened to us is our sewer line collapsed.
Oh
So
no.
right before Thanksgiving, we had to spend, you know, all this money to have the whole thing replaced. And of course, the city doesn't pay for it.
Really? That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I guess I heard you say
30
some stuff
feet of
about-
line from my house to the street, you know, unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad.
You'd think that all that stormwater utility money they collect would have gone to replacing that, but
Could go into the backyard, but no, unfortunately not.
no, wow.
That's why they are always trying to sell you that insurance, you know, to.
Home serve. Well, I pay for that and I'm gonna cash in. a
Oh,
little
good.
bit, hopefully.
You were
It
smart.
takes a month for them to decide if they're gonna approve it or not, but no. It's a
Well-
nightmare.
I just added the urban forestry program to our list of conservation policies and filled in as much as I could on the columns. It's
Good, thanks, Lonnie.
Okay.
It's pretty good, actually. We get, you know, because we can get like 4 yeses right in a row on that one. So that actually is a pretty good one. Whenever Kim is ready to work on it, or we're ready to work on it.
Yeah, I think it will be a big project, but it's one that's will be worthwhile, worth doing for sure.
Well, if we don't have anything else to discuss, I really want to wish you guys a good holiday. And as we move into darkness, don't put too many lights up around your house, and or make sure you unplug them before you go to bed. But I hope you guys all have a safe holiday and stay safe. And we will look forward to seeing you again in 2020. Beginning of that.
Thanks,
Thank
Christine.
you.
Great. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Christine, everybody.
Thanks.
Good job.
Have a-
Bye,
have a great
everyone.
evening.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Carolyn.